I never thought my marriage would end because of a lie. But looking back now, maybe the signs were always there, hiding in plain sight like dust bunnies under a perfectly made bed. My name is Madison, and until recently, I was married to Ross, a civil aviation pilot. We'd been together for 3 years, living in a small rented house that I tried my best to keep spotless. Working as an insurance company manager means I appreciate order, maybe a bit too much, as Ross used to joke. "Maddie," he'd say, coming back from the bathroom, "I swear you made my side of the bed while I was gone." He'd laugh, and I'd roll my eyes, but secretly I'd feel proud. There's something comforting about knowing where everything belongs. Ross had a younger sister, Alice. She lived with her husband in the neighboring state, and honestly, we weren't close. We'd exchange the obligatory holiday phone calls, and occasionally she'd visit, turning our tidy house into what looked like a tornado aftermath. Her clothes would end up everywhere, dirty dishes would pile up, and the bathroom, well, let's just say it tested my patience. I remember the exact moment everything changed. It was a Tuesday evening, and I just finished reorganizing the kitchen cabinets. The doorbell rang, not Ross's usual pattern of 2 short rings. When I opened the door, there stood Alice, mascara running down her face, looking like she hadn't slept in days. Before I could say anything, she collapsed into my arms, sobbing. "I have cancer," she choked out between tears. "Tom left me after the diagnosis. We're divorced. I lost my job. I have nowhere to go." I stood there, frozen, one hand awkwardly patting her back. This was Alice, the sister-in-law who drove me crazy with her messiness, but right now she was just a scared woman who needed help. What else could I do? "Come in," I said, leading her to the couch. "You can stay here for now." I called Ross immediately. He was somewhere over Michigan, flying a commercial route. "You did the right thing, babe," he said when I told him about Alice. "Let her stay as long as she needs." That night, Alice told me about her treatment plan. She'd found a doctor through my company's medical network, and she had enough money saved up for the procedures. "The chemotherapy isn't too expensive," she explained, wiping her eyes. "And Tom gave me some money in the divorce settlement." I gave her the spare room upstairs, made her some tea, and tried to be supportive. Looking back now, I should have asked more questions. I should have noticed the inconsistencies right from the start. But sometimes when you're trying to be a good person, you forget to be a smart one. I really thought things would be different this time. Maybe cancer had changed Alice, made her more considerate. Boy, was I wrong. Within days, it was like a tornado had hit our house, but the tornado's name was Alice, and it was permanently camped out in my living room. Her clothes created a breadcrumb trail from the front door to her bedroom, a sweater draped over the banister, jeans on the couch, socks scattered like fallen leaves. Even my carefully arranged throw pillows ended up on the floor, usually covered in potato chip crumbs. "Alice, could you please pick up your clothes?" I'd ask, trying to keep my voice gentle. After all, she was sick, right? "Oh, sorry Maddie, I'm just so tired from everything," she'd reply, not moving an inch from her bed where she lay watching TV. The kitchen was even worse. Every morning, I'd find crusty plates from her midnight snacks, cups with coffee rings stuck to my carefully polished furniture, and don't even get me started on the bathroom. Hair everywhere, wet towels on the floor, toothpaste smeared across the sink. It was like living with a teenager who never learned basic hygiene. The bathroom that I used to keep spotless now looked like a disaster zone, with makeup stains on the counter and mysterious sticky spots that I didn't even want to investigate. I spent my evenings cleaning up after her, muttering under my breath while scrubbing dried food off plates. During the day, I'd be managing insurance claims at the office, and at night, I was managing Hurricane Alice's aftermath. Sometimes I'd come home exhausted after a long day of work, dreaming of a quiet evening, only to find new mess waiting for me. Meanwhile, she spent her days in bed, binge-watching reality shows and leaving a trail of snack wrappers in her wake. The weekends were even worse. At least during weekdays, she'd occasionally leave for her supposed treatments. But on weekends, she'd camp out in the living room all day, somehow managing to mess up every single room in the house while barely moving from the couch. I'd find dishes in the most bizarre places, Once there was a bowl of half-eaten cereal on top of the washing machine, for God's sake. "How was your doctor's appointment?" I asked one evening, hoping to hear something about her treatment progress. I was folding yet another load of her laundry that she'd left in the dryer for 2 days. She perked up for the first time in days. "Oh, the doctor gave me a special diet plan. It's super important. If I don't follow it exactly, it could mess up my whole treatment." I took the paper she thrust at me, scanning the list of required foods. My eyes widened at the specifications: fresh salmon 3 times a week, organic Mediterranean vegetables, premium olive oil, fresh-caught tuna, and an array of expensive nuts and seeds. The list went on and on, each item more costly than the last. "Alice," I said slowly, "this looks exactly like a Mediterranean diet. It's going to be really expensive." She shrugged, already turning back to her TV show. "I don't know anything about diets, Maddie. Doctor's orders, you know? Can't risk messing up my treatment." Looking at her sprawled on the bed, surrounded by snack wrappers and dirty dishes, I felt a familiar twitch in my eye. But what could I say? She had cancer, right? And this was doctor's orders, right? Life before Alice moved in was simple. With Ross always away on flights, I had my routine down pat. After a long day at the insurance office, I'd grab takeout or hit up the little cafe around the corner. Sometimes I'd scroll through my phone, enjoying the peaceful silence of eating alone. Sometimes I'd pick up a good book, or just watch whatever I wanted on TV. No cooking, minimal dishes, just the way I liked it. Now my evenings revolved around Alice's medical diet. Every single day, like clockwork, my phone would buzz with her grocery list. Not just any groceries, no, these had to be specific brands, specific cuts, specific everything. And heaven forbid if I got the wrong type of organic quinoa or if the salmon wasn't fresh enough. "The doctor says it has to be fresh cooked," she'd remind me daily, usually without looking up from her phone or TV show. Reheated food could interfere with my treatment. You wouldn't want to compromise my health, would you? So there I was, rushing to the grocery store after work, lugging bags of expensive seafood and organic produce home, then spending hours in the kitchen. Salmon with capers one day, fresh tuna steaks the next. Mediterranean this, organic that. My kitchen, which used to be spotless from lack of use, now looked like a professional restaurant after a dinner rush. The worst part was knowing that half the food I cooked would end up pushed around the plate or hidden under napkins. But the cooking wasn't even the worst part. The dishes, oh God, the dishes. Every day, I'd venture into Alice's room, arms braced for the archaeological dig of crusty plates and clouded glasses. Food dried harder than concrete, mysterious stains that looked like they'd need a chisel to remove. Sometimes I'd find week-old plates shoved under her bed, growing things that probably violated several health codes. The smell alone was enough to make me gag sometimes. I started dreading going into her room. It wasn't just the dishes, it was the whole atmosphere. The curtains were always drawn, the air stale with the mix of leftover food and whatever perfume she doused herself in before her treatments. Empty water glasses everywhere, some with lipstick stains in various shades that somehow never seemed to match what she was wearing that day. Finally, one evening, after spending an hour scrubbing what I think used to be risotto off a plate, I snapped. "Alice, I can't keep doing this," I said, holding up a plate that looked like it had survived a natural disaster. "The dried food takes forever to clean. Could you at least rinse your plates? Just a quick rinse under the tap would make such a difference." She looked up from her phone, and I swear I saw a smirk flash across her face. "Oh, I've actually thought of a solution for that." "Really?" I felt a glimmer of hope. "Yeah. I'm going to buy a little bell," she said, miming ringing it with her perfectly manicured hands. "Whenever I finish eating, I'll just ring it, and you can come get the plates right away. That way, nothing will dry on them." I stood there, dish rag dripping in my hand, wondering if I'd heard her correctly. A bell. Like I was some kind of servant in a period drama. Like she was the lady of the manor and I was her maid. "I'd do it myself," she added quickly, probably seeing my expression. "But you know how the meds make me so dizzy." I can barely stand sometimes. The doctor says I need to rest as much as possible. You understand, right? She flopped back on her pillows dramatically, one hand pressed to her forehead like a Victorian lady with a case of the vapors. Meanwhile, I gripped the dish rag so hard water dripped onto my shoes, trying to remind myself that she was sick, that she needed help, that this was temporary. After 2 weeks of playing servant to Alice, Ross finally came home from his latest flight. I was hoping he'd notice how exhausted I looked, how our once peaceful home had turned into a chaotic mess. Instead, all his attention went to his sister. "I'm so bored," Alice whined from her usual spot on the bed. "All I do is lie here all day. The TV in this room is so small, and I can't even watch my shows properly." I couldn't believe my ears. Here I was, cooking her fancy meals and cleaning up after her like a maid, and she was complaining about the TV size? But Ross, my dear husband, jumped into action like his sister's personal Santa Claus. That same day, he came home lugging a massive new TV and a top-of-the-line laptop. Just like that, hundreds of dollars spent without even discussing it with me. "You didn't think to talk to me first?" I asked him later that night. "She's sick, Maddie," he replied, like that explained everything. "What else can we do?" I bit my tongue and let it go. But over the next 2 weeks, things started feeling off. Little things at first, then bigger ones that I couldn't ignore. For someone with cancer, Alice never seemed to talk about it. No mentions of treatments, no discussion of symptoms or side effects. I never saw any prescription bottles in her room, no medical paperwork, nothing that you'd expect to see from someone undergoing cancer treatment. Then there was the smell. At first, I thought I was imagining it, but every time I went into her room, there was this distinct odor of alcohol. Not medicinal alcohol, the drinking kind. One day, I decided to reach out and help. "Hey, Alice," I said carefully, "I have a former classmate who's an oncologist at Memorial Private Clinic. She's really good, maybe you'd like to get a second opinion?" The look she gave me was strange, a mix of panic and anger that flashed across her face before she composed herself. "No, thanks," she said firmly. "I trust my doctor completely. I'm not interested in changing my treatment plan." Something in her voice, the way she quickly changed the subject, made my suspicions grow stronger. But what exactly was I suspicious of? That my sister-in-law was lying about having cancer? That seemed too crazy, too cruel to even consider. I began watching Alice more closely over the next few weeks. Something wasn't adding up, and I needed to know what it was. Every day when I came home from work, I'd casually ask about her treatments. Her answers were always vague, always deflecting. "Oh, you know, same old," or "let's not talk about depressing medical stuff," or my personal favorite, "I'm just so tired from the treatment, can we discuss it later?" But what really caught my attention was her treatment routine. Most cancer patients I knew through work went to their appointments early in the day, dressed comfortably. Not Alice. She'd wait until evening, usually around 7 or 8 p.m., and you should have seen how she dressed up. One Thursday evening, I watched her prepare for her treatment. She put on a tight black dress, spent an hour on her makeup, and wobbled down the stairs in 4-inch heels. Who dresses like that for chemotherapy? Even stranger were the shopping bags she'd come home with. Multiple times a week, she'd return late at night, stumbling slightly from fatigue, she claimed, carrying bags from various boutiques and department stores. Since when did cancer centers have shopping malls? I decided to do some research. Alice had told me she had bowel cancer, so I spent several nights after work reading everything I could find about it. Symptoms, treatments, dietary requirements, everything. I even called up a few friends who worked in oncology, asking general questions about cancer treatments without mentioning Alice. Nothing matched. The symptoms she occasionally complained about weren't consistent with bowel cancer. The diet her doctor prescribed wasn't standard protocol. Even the timing of her treatments was all wrong. No cancer center I could find offered regular evening chemotherapy sessions. Then came the night that confirmed all my suspicions. Ross was away on another flight, and Alice had just left for her evening treatment, dressed to the nines as usual. Something in me snapped. I couldn't take the uncertainty anymore. I went to her room. The smell of alcohol hit me the moment I opened the door, stronger than ever. I started looking around, and there, behind her designer shoe collection, I found them. Empty wine bottles, half-full vodka bottles, miniature liquor bottles probably stolen from Ross's pilot courtesy bags. Some were hidden in shoe boxes, others wrapped in scarves, but they were everywhere. Suddenly, everything clicked into place. The evening treatments. The shopping bags. The smell I'd been noticing all along. The mysterious dizziness and fatigue. The way she avoided any real discussion of her supposed cancer. I stood there among the bottles, feeling sick to my stomach. Because who goes through chemotherapy while drinking this much alcohol? Nobody. No doctor would allow it. No patient could handle it. The truth hit me like a slap in the face. Alice didn't have cancer. She'd lied. About everything. She'd moved into our house, turned our lives upside down, made me cook and clean and wait on her hand and foot, all based on a lie. My hands were shaking as I dialed Tom's number. I'd found it in Ross's old address book, and even though it was nearly midnight, I couldn't wait until morning. To my surprise, he picked up on the third ring. Tom? This is Madison, Alice's sister-in-law. Madison, is everything okay? He sounded concerned, but fully awake. I need to ask you something, and I need you to be completely honest with me. Did you leave Alice because she had cancer? There was a long pause on the other end. Cancer? What cancer? Alice doesn't have cancer. My grip tightened on the phone. She told us she had bowel cancer, that you left her after the diagnosis. He let out a bitter laugh. Is that what she's telling people? Look, I left Alice because she's an alcoholic who parties every night and probably cheats on me. She'd come home at 3 a.m. smelling like strange men's cologne, barely able to walk straight. I tried to get her help, but she refused. Then she started showing up to work drunk, got herself fired from a job I helped her get. I waited up for her return, sitting in the dark living room. Around 1 a.m., she stumbled through the door, carrying more shopping bags, reeking of alcohol and cigarettes. Had a good treatment session? I asked, flipping on the lamp. She jumped, nearly dropping her bags. Maddie, you scared me. Yes, it was fine. Really? Because I just had an interesting chat with Tom. The color drained from her face. She tried to steady herself against the wall. What? He told me everything, Alice. About the drinking, the partying, how you got fired. Funny how he never mentioned any cancer. He doesn't know about it, she stammered, but I could see the lie crumbling. Stop it, I snapped. I found your bottle collection. All of it. You don't have cancer. You never did. This whole thing has been one big lie. She burst into tears, not the delicate, sick person tears I'd seen before, but ugly, drunk sobbing. What was I supposed to do? I lost everything. My job, my husband, my home. So you decided to lie about having cancer? Who does that? You don't understand. If I told you the truth, would you have taken me in? No, I said firmly, I wouldn't have. And you know what? That's exactly what's happening now. Pack your bags. You're leaving. You can't do this to me, she shrieked, suddenly furious. I'm family. Family doesn't lie about having cancer. Family doesn't manipulate people. Get out. She packed while screaming obscenities at me, calling me every name in the book. Said I was heartless, cruel, that I never liked her anyway. Each insult just confirmed I was doing the right thing. I was cleaning up the last traces of Alice's stay, gathering empty bottles, throwing out her special diet of foods, when my phone rang. Ross's name flashed on the screen. I took a deep breath and answered. What the hell is wrong with you? He was shouting so loud I had to hold the phone away from my ear. How dare you throw my sister out in the middle of the night? Alice called me crying. She's sick, Madison. She has cancer, and you threw her out like some stray dog. I gripped the phone tighter. She doesn't have cancer, Ross. She lied about everything. I talked to Tom. Tom, her ex-husband? What gives you the right to go behind her back like that? I found bottles in her room, Ross. Dozens of them. She's been going out partying, not to treatment. She's been lying to all of us. So what if she had a few drinks? She's dealing with cancer, Madison. People cope in different ways. I wanted to scream. She doesn't have cancer. She admitted it to me. She made the whole thing up because she's an alcoholic who lost her job and her marriage. Ask Tom if you don't believe me. I don't need to ask anyone. I know my sister. You need to apologize to her right now. I will not apologize for exposing a lie. We'll discuss this when I get home, he growled. And believe me, we will discuss it. The line went dead. I barely had time to process that conversation before my phone rang again. This time it was my mother-in-law, Barbara. How could you throw my sick daughter out on the street? She started in immediately. Barbara, Alice isn't sick. She admitted to making it all up. She's been lying to everyone. So what if she lied? Barbara cut me off. She's going through a difficult time. She lost her marriage, her job. Because of her drinking. She shows up drunk to work, parties all night, and then makes up a story about having cancer. And you're defending this? You're the one who needs defending. My poor daughter is out on the street because of you. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Your poor daughter is an alcoholic who needs help, not enablers. She manipulated all of us. Don't you dare talk about my daughter that way. Barbara's voice rose to a shriek. You've never liked her, have you? Always looking down on her with your perfect little organized life. Well, let me tell you something, you're not half the person Alice is. At least she has a heart. But you're just cold. Heartless. Wait until I tell Ross about how you're speaking about his sister. We'll see how long this marriage of yours lasts after that. When Ross finally came home, the fury in his eyes told me everything I needed to know about where this was headed. He stormed into the house, dropping his pilot's bag by the door, not in its usual spot, but I guess that didn't matter anymore. Have you apologized to Alice yet? No, hello, no, how are you? Just straight to his sister. No, and I'm not going to apologize for exposing a lie. He slammed his hand on the kitchen counter. Then I want a divorce. The word hung in the air between us, heavy and final. I'd been expecting it, but it still felt like a punch to the gut. You would divorce me because I wouldn't enable your sister's drinking problem? Don't you dare call it that. You don't understand anything about family loyalty, do you? About being there for people when they're down? Loyalty? Is that what you call letting your sister lie about having cancer? Watching her destroy herself with alcohol while pretending everything's fine? We didn't speak for the next 3 days. The silence in our little house was deafening. Ross slept in the guest room, Alice's old room, ironically, while I lay awake in our bed, wondering how we got here. Finally, I couldn't take it anymore. I found him in the kitchen one morning, making coffee. We need to talk about this, Ross. Really talk. He turned to face me, and I saw something in his eyes I'd never seen before, or maybe I just never wanted to see it. There's nothing to talk about, he said flatly. My family comes first. Always has, always will. I will always support them, no matter what. And what am I? Aren't I your family too? You proved you're not family when you threw my sister out. And there it was, the truth I'd been avoiding since the day I married him. I would never be family to Ross. Not really. I would always be an outsider, expected to play along with whatever his real family wanted. You're right, I said quietly. I'm not family. Not to you, not to Alice, not to your mother. So let's stop pretending. I want a divorce too. That was 3 months ago. Now I'm living in a small apartment near my office, no more long commute, no more cleaning up after anyone but myself. The divorce proceedings are ongoing, but I haven't spoken to Ross since I moved out. I heard through the grapevine that Alice is living with her mother now. Apparently, she's still drinking, still partying, still making up stories to get what she wants. But that's not my problem anymore. Sometimes, when I come home from work to my quiet, clean apartment, I think about how strange it is that the truth can end a marriage. But then I remember, it wasn't the truth that ended my marriage. It was the lies. The lies Alice told about having cancer, and the bigger lie I told myself, that I could ever be truly part of Ross's family. My apartment might be smaller than our house, but it's mine. Every morning, I make my bed the way I like it. Every evening, I come home to exactly the level of cleanliness I left it in. There are no bottles hidden behind shoes, no dirty dishes under the bed, no expensive medical diets to cook. And you know what? I'm happier now. Because sometimes losing a family that was never really yours is better than pretending to be part of one that will never really accept you.